On a humid August morning in 1944, near the village of Senth in Normandy, France, the leather of Hauptmann Michael Wittmann's gloves creaked as he gripped the cupola of Tiger 007. Through his Zeiss binoculars, he surveyed the hedgerow-lined horizon, his hands trembling not from fear, but from a dawning realization that had been building since dawn. For 3 hours, his company of 4 Tiger tanks had systematically destroyed Sherman after Sherman, leaving 27 burning hulks scattered across the fields around the Kuntai Road. Each Tiger had claimed at least 6 kills, achieving what any tactical manual would consider a decisive victory with an exchange ratio of nearly 7-to-1. Yet through his binoculars, Wittmann counted 40, 8 more Shermans advancing from 3 directions, fresh units with unblooded crews and full ammunition racks. Behind them, columns of dust suggested dozens more approaching. His 4 Tigers had perhaps 12 rounds of armor, piercing ammunition remaining between them. No fuel for major maneuvers, and no reserves coming. The mathematics of annihilation were being written not in individual tank battles, but in production statistics that rendered tactical brilliance irrelevant. What Wittmann witnessed that morning was not merely a battle, but a demonstration of industrial arithmetic that would crush the Wehrmacht beneath sheer mass. Within minutes, he would be dead, his legendary Tiger destroyed by either a Sherman Firefly or Canadian forces. His final radio transmission, logged at 12:47 hours, would capture the despair of every German tanker who faced American production. Ammunition exhausted, enemy unlimited. The story of this mathematical inevitability had begun 3 years earlier on May 26, 1941, at the Berghof, Hitler's mountain retreat. Ferdinand Porsche and Henschel presented their prototypes for what would become the Tiger tank. Hitler, mesmerized by the massive 88mm gun and armor that no Allied tank could penetrate, immediately ordered production. This tank, he declared to his assembled generals, will be worth a battalion of ordinary tanks. 1 Tiger will destroy a dozen enemy vehicles. The F.E. Herr's order that followed set the tone for Germany's fatal miscalculation: quality would triumph over quantity. Each Tiger would be a masterpiece of engineering, handcrafted by skilled workers and invincible on the battlefield. The Americans, Hitler assured his staff, could never match German engineering excellence. Their tanks would be, in the words of Propaganda Minister Goebbels, Detroit tin cans on tracks. The first Tiger rolled off the production line at Henschel's Castle factory on August 4, 1942. It had required 300 Zarazen man-hours to complete, with workers installing 26 Zarazen individual parts. Master craftsmen had hand-fitted the transmission. Skilled welders had spent days on the armor plates, and the interleaved wheel system alone required precision assembly that only experienced workers could accomplish. Oberst Wolfgang Thomel, watching the first Tiger's trials at Kummersdorf, wrote in his report, "This machine represents the pinnacle of German engineering. No enemy can stand against it. If we can produce 100 per month, the war is won. Germany would never produce 100 Tigers in any month." The highest monthly production, achieved in April 1944 after 2 years of optimization, was 104 tanks. By then, American factories were producing 2 Saurs and Shermans monthly. The story of American tank production began not with military planning, but with a telephone call. On May 28, 1940, William Knudsen, former president of General Motors, received a call from President Roosevelt. The president said, "I want you to come to Washington. We need to build 50,000 planes and 50,000 tanks." Knudsen's response would define American production philosophy. "Mr. President, we can't build the best planes and tanks, but we can build the most planes and tanks, and we can build them so that any kid from Iowa can fix them with a wrench and a screwdriver." The Sherman tank emerged from this philosophy. At a design meeting at Aberdeen Proving Ground on August 31, 1940, Army ordnance presented requirements that horrified traditional military engineers but delighted Detroit production experts. Simple enough for inexperienced workers to build, parts interchangeable between all variants, engines that could run on multiple fuel types, armor plates that could be welded rather than precisely fitted, tracks that a crew could replace in field conditions, and a turret ring wide enough to accept future upgrades. Major General Gladian Barnes, head of Army Ordnance, told the assembled contractors, "I don't want a perfect tank. I want a good enough tank that we can build 1,000 of them for every 100 the Germans build. Make it reliable, make it fixable, and make it by the tens of thousands." The contrast between German and American production philosophy became evident in the factories themselves. At Henschel's Castle plant, 9,000 skilled workers labored to produce Tigers in what resembled a medieval guild workshop scaled to industrial size. Master craftsmen supervised apprentices. Each tank was essentially hand-built, and workers signed their names on completed components, taking personal pride in their craftsmanship. Meanwhile, at Chrysler's Detroit tank arsenal, opened on September 15, 1941, the reality was radically different. The factory covered 1.25 million square feet, larger than all German tank factories combined. Instead of master craftsmen, the workforce consisted of former automobile workers, housewives, teenagers, and anyone who could learn to operate a riveting gun or welding torch. Rose Wilman-Rowe, who would become Rosie the Riveter, worked on Sherman production at the arsenal. She later described the experience. "I'd never seen a tank before I started building them. They gave us 2 days of training, then put us on the line. Everything was broken down into simple steps. I'd weld one seam. The tank would move, someone else would weld the next. We'd finish a tank in 4 hours. The Detroit tank arsenal achieved something German engineers considered impossible: assembly line production of tanks. Adapting techniques from automobile manufacturing, Chrysler engineers broke the Sherman into modular components. Sub-assemblies were built on parallel lines, then brought together for final assembly. The entire process from raw steel to completed tank took 48 hours. By December 1942, the production statistics were already telling a story that German commanders refused to believe. The Detroit tank arsenal alone was producing 89 Shermans per month, more than double what many German intelligence reports suggested. Across America, 11 factories were building Shermans, with total monthly production reaching approximately 3,500 tanks. German monthly Tiger production during the same period was 34 tanks, a ratio of 103 to 1. General Major Heinz Guderian, Inspector General of Panzer Troops, received these figures through intelligence reports in January 1943. His diary entry was succinct. "If these numbers are even half true, we have already lost the war." The production disparity created cascading secondary effects that multiplied American advantages. With thousands of Shermans available, American tank crews trained on actual tanks. At Fort Knox, Kentucky, the Armored Force School had hundreds of Shermans dedicated solely to training. Crews spent 12 weeks learning every aspect of their vehicle, firing thousands of rounds in gunnery practice and driving hundreds of miles. In Germany, Tiger tank training told a different story. With total production barely exceeding 100 tanks per month at peak, training vehicles were virtually non-existent. The Panzertruppen School at Putlos had exactly 4 Tigers for training purposes, 4 tanks to train crews for every Tiger unit in the Wehrmacht. D-Day, June 6, 1944, marked the beginning of the mathematical demonstration that would devastate German armored forces. The Allies landed with 4,000 tanks, mostly Shermans, with 8,000 more waiting in England for transport. Against this, Germany had assembled approximately 430 operational Tigers on all fronts combined. In Normandy itself, the Germans could muster just 102 Tigers. The replacement rate told the real story. When America lost a Sherman, a new one arrived from England within 48 hours through a replacement system that maintained a reserve of 300 Shermans in British depots. When Germany lost a Tiger, Replacement took weeks or months, if it came at all. Each Tiger required special railway cars for transport, and the journey from Germany to Normandy took 5 days under optimal conditions. Allied air attacks often extended this to weeks. Michael Wittmann's action at Villers, Bocage on June 13, 1944, has been celebrated as the pinnacle of German tank warfare. In roughly 15 minutes, tanks under Wittmann's command destroyed 14 tanks, 15 personnel carriers, and 2 anti-tank guns of the British 7th Armoured Division. German propaganda proclaimed it as proof of Aryan superiority and Tiger invincibility. What they didn't report was the aftermath. Within 72 hours. The British 7th Armoured Division had received complete replacement of all lost vehicles from depot stocks. Wittmann's Tiger Company, which lost 3 Tigers in subsequent fighting, would not receive replacements for 6 weeks. By mid-1944, the mathematics of production had created a cascading crisis Germany couldn't solve. Each Tiger required a crew of 5 highly trained specialists, with training a complete Tiger crew properly requiring 19 man-months of instruction. Germany was losing Tiger crews faster than they could be trained. The Americans faced no such crisis. By 1944, Fort Knox was graduating 2,000 fully trained Sherman crews monthly. When Germany surrendered on May 8, 1945, the production tallies told the complete story. Germany had produced approximately 180-39 Tigers total. America had produced 49 234 Shermans, plus an additional 2,000 produced by British and Canadian factories. A ratio of 27.7 Shermans for every Tiger. At a 1975 reunion at Fort Knox, American and German tank veterans confronted this mathematical reality. Otto Carius, Germany's second highest scoring tank ace, with over 150 kills, spoke candidly. "We were fighting mathematics, not Americans. I could destroy 10 Shermans and 20 would appear. It was not combat, but arithmetic. We were calculators trying to defeat an avalanche with individual excellence." Staff Sergeant Clyde Bronson, who commanded Shermans in 3 different armoured divisions, responded, "Otto's right. We knew most of us weren't tank aces. We didn't need to be. We needed to be adequate and numerous. Wars aren't won by heroes, but by production lines." The Tiger versus Sherman debate was never about tanks at all. It was about production philosophy, industrial capacity, and the mathematics of modern war. Germany lost the war in the factories of Detroit long before they lost it on the battlefields of Europe. They were defeated not by better tanks, but by more tanks, not by superior quality, but by overwhelming quantity, not by tactical excellence, but by strategic arithmetic. The 49-234 to 1-347 ratio remains the only number that mattered. Mathematical proof that in industrial warfare, the assembly line defeats the craftsman's bench every single time.